Hello, hello, hello. It is Sunday again, and we are here for Cosmic Matters. So, thank you for taking the time to listen in. I am the Matt of Cosmic Matters. My name is Matthew Washington, and I created Cosmic Matters to give us a different perspective on the world that we live in. I hope to entertain your brain for a little while and give you expand the thoughts of what we don't typically think about on an everyday basis and what's going on. And I realize as I go through my day, and deal with different people, and I say, I have to remember all the time that I am not a part of the Borg, if you know the Borg from Star Trek. And what I mean by that is that just because I learned something doesn't mean everybody's learned something. And a lot of times I'll speak to people and I'm almost like, you don't know that? Like I'm speaking on like a level 4 in that subject. Not that I'm smarter than anyone or more advanced, but as far as it would be like someone explaining to me something about that's going on in their life at their job, and I don't even understand what their job is, and they're talking to me about, several layers in. I'd be like, "What is it exactly you do?" That's how I talk to people when sometimes about Tesla and space and whatnot. And so I have to remember we got to start from ground zero. But today, you see, I have a different background today, and there's a reason for that. We're going to be talking a little bit of actually not even Tesla, more SpaceX, XAI, and X, and some other Elon companies. And the interesting thing about this is SpaceX. Let's start with SpaceX. So SpaceX, their mission really is to get us to Mars, right? And that was the original reason for SpaceX. Now, in order to develop or get us to Mars, we needed. We're gonna. You know what? Let's go back. Let's do a little bit of history lesson with SpaceX, and that way we can have an understanding of that, and then we'll have a little bit of better understanding of what's actually going on today. So, SpaceX was started again. The goal was to get us to Mars, and the reason for that was to make humanity a multiplanetary species. So the idea of this is, it's going to be scary if because we haven't had things happen in a while doesn't mean they can't happen. Like in our time, like our thoughts about time, like we as humans, we live anywhere. The average age span of a human up until maybe 100 years ago was like 40, it was like 45, 40 years old. And now we've gotten, over the last 100 years with modern science and health, with just technology and our ability to get health care. Not so much in this country, but whatever. We've expanded up to like 60 and 70, and some humans live up to 100 years old. There was actually a video, I think it's on YouTube, where it talks about America is only 100 years old. Oh, excuse me, not 100 years old. While America is only 3 people old, and it has something to do with somebody who was born like right in 1776, and then they lived to be like 80 or 90 years old, and then they had a kid, and that kid lived to be like 100, and then they had a kid, and that kid's like still alive today, right? Because our country, let's do the math. We always like to check ourselves here. Our country was started in 1776. It's now 2026. If I could type 2026 minus 1776 is 250 years. All right. So if you had somebody who lived to 80, and then and had a child, like somehow, like, as the man, the point of it was like the guy was really old, and then he got someone pregnant at a really old age. I can't remember the who it was or the story. And then that person lives to 80 years old, does the same thing, and then that person could do the same thing at 90, or if that person lived till 90 years old, then that's it. That's the three. It's all you need. So three lifespans, and you think of the Civil War and the Revolutionary War, and and all the things that have gone, Vietnam, and all the things that have happened over this country and we think it's a long time, but I remember particularly like when I went to visit Spain, my first time out of the country, and this was back in 2003, and it was my first time I went to Europe. I remember we went to see this. We were in Barcelona, and we went to see this cathedral, and they were saying something like, "This cathedral is like 3,000 years old or whatnot," and I was like, "3,000 years old." Like, I was used to Long Island where we would go to like Theodore Roosevelt's house and we see it was like 200 years old. And you're like, this is 3,000 years old. So we don't really have very big concepts of time. Like, what's a long time? And even if humanity, some people say humans have been around for 100,000 years. Some people say like a million years. There's not a distinct time, but even a million years on the face of this planet is a very short period of time. I also remember seeing something like the dinosaurs were on the earth like altogether longer than from the time of ancient times, like from the time of the pyramids to now. So there were like millions of years that the dinosaurs were around, and there were no humans. We don't even think of that as. Let's ask Google. Google. How long were the dinosaurs on Earth? So, yeah, non-avian dinosaurs inhabited Earth approximately 165 to 180 million years. All right. So that's quite some time. Right? And we're like, oh, humans were around for a million years. Well, they were around for 165 to 180 million years. And the Earth has been around for 4.3, 4.4 billion years, right? So my point is, we just go, well, because we haven't been hit by an asteroid since the dinosaurs were hit by or big enough since then, that it's just not going to happen, or that's over, or that's in the past, and it's simply not. We only monitor something like 3 or 4% of our sky, and actually now it's a lot more because of AI. One of the great things about AI is they're able to monitor more space rocks, more trajectories, more things that potentially could hit planet Earth and end our civilization. But there's all kinds of things that could end us, like all the things that we think that that are so special and that we've created could end in a heartbeat. The Yellowstone National Park supervolcano could totally wipe us out. If that thing starts going, we're done. Humanity is pretty much be gone. Like, there's all kinds of stuff that can happen. Besides the fact that we could wipe ourselves out with some nuclear warheads. So the objective of SpaceX is to get us to Mars, so we could be multiplanetary. So if something does happen to Earth, that humanity can go on, the consciousness could continue. All right, that was the mission of SpaceX originally, and it still is, actually. I say originally, but that's really what it is. Now the thing is, rockets cost a lot of money. I remember in the beginning when I started looking into SpaceX, and Elon was I read his book, and he was talking about how it would cost $10 million to launch a rocket, like even just to get into like low Earth, or it was like just to barely get into space, not even outer space, just to get through just out of the atmosphere, and it was like $10 million. And he's like, why does it cost so much? Doesn't make sense. It's like, it's just literally a canister filled with gas. Like, why does it cost $10 million to do this? And so, and then he went from there. He started developing. There's by the way, I say he, I mean he and his team, and it's a really great story to see all the things that happened to make SpaceX. So they developed this whole rocketry that could reland itself because they had to make money. All right, so that's the thing that people seem to forget, that you need capital to do these types of things. And normally our governments are not incentivized to do things. Like, the reason why we got to the moon so quickly is because we were in a space race with Russia. But then once the race ended, it'd be like, why haven't we gone back to the moon? What's going on? We're not able to. It's like, no, they don't have a reason to. They don't have. It costs so much money. It's people's lives at stake. It was a lot to do. But once it was done, they didn't feel the need to do it anymore. So they stopped and cut the funding for it. Funding's kind of important. So the way what SpaceX did is they came up with reusable rockets, and you could like shoot the rocket deliver a payload, whether it's to the ISS or shoot satellites out into orbit, and then reland the rocket and then send it off again. I think SpaceX right now is up to something around 200. It's between 200 and 300 launches that they do a year, which is ridiculous. It's, if you really think about it. We don't pay attention to those because we're the focus always is on how can we point at someone and point to the failures. Like, I hear people talk about, SpaceX crashed another rocket exploded. It's like the reason why the rockets explode, it's not like the regular everyday rockets that explode. Like, the ones that explode are the ones where they're literally pushing. They literally say, okay, well, we have to stress this system. We want to see how do we get better. How can we get more efficient? Do we really need this part? Do we really need that part? Can we get rid of this? Is this necessary? Do we need this much shielding? How much heat shielding do we need? Because every single gram, like literally every gram of weight, of mass, excuse me, has to be calculated. And they said, well, the less that we have to bring up, the faster the rocket can go, the more fuel we can put, the farther it can go. And so they have to push these limits, and they have to make the things blow up, because that's how they figure it out. When SpaceX started, the things were blowing up all the time. We're like, it blew up. Another rocket blew up. Now they launched 300 rockets and land them safely, and no one talks about those. They only talk about now the the ones that do blow up, which are like the Starship ones. Those super, really gigantic, bigger ones that are as big as bigger than the Statue of Liberty, right? So. But I'm trying to get over the people who don't understand it, just want to sit on the side and laugh and don't want to take the time to kind of figure things out. So, but anyway, so the point being is that's the purpose of SpaceX, to make us multi-planetary, get civilization to Mars, build a city on Mars, and not allow humanity to die if something catastrophic happens on Earth. Now, my buddy, Mr. Super High Man, he sends me anytime there's anything negative about Elon, he likes to poke the bear and send it to me. But he sent me something about SpaceX Elon has changed their goal from getting to Mars to now going to the moon. All right. And that's like the big headline now. And I'm like, well, their mission is still to go to Mars. They've just changed. They want to make a moon base first. Like, in order, like, to say we want to just build a thing on Mars, it's not like something that you just happens in one step. It's like, okay, step one, build a city on Mars. That's not step one. That's like step a million. All right. Before you get there, you got to do all this other stuff. So first thing, reusable rockets. Then they have to make money, because the government isn't going to give them money to do this. Because they're not going to be able to get private investors to fund this stuff, because it's not something that's going to bring back any kind of return on investment that's known, right? So what has to happen is, what they have to do is they had to come up with a way to make money. So they started Starlink, which not only did it make money, but Starlink also not only brings in revenue, but also brings in brings a lot of detail and service, a lot of service to humanity. So Starlink is the satellites that are out there that can bring internet, because right now when you get your internet, you usually get it from terrestrial locations, cell towers and things on Earth, not in space. But the space ones, they can then give internet to anywhere, remote places. And so that's how Starlink works. And Starlink will allow people to have internet in the middle of the desert or in countries that don't allow internet. Like, you can just get it from space and don't have to build all the infrastructure on the ground. So that's the whole revenue part of because they have to make money to then make the rockets to go to Mars. Now, the next step of that process, and again, I'm skipping a lot of steps, but is they just did something really cool, and they just bought XAI. Now, XAI had been merged with X, which X was formerly Twitter, right? And so I want to tell people there's a secret little mission in there that I heard from someone. It makes a ton of sense, and we're doing a short show today because I have family visiting, but I want to get this onto the airways as of right now, as soon as I can, and talk about this. So like I said, Soup sent me this thing about, now their mission is to get to the moon, and they want to build a base, a self-growing city on the moon. Well, why is that? Well, that's true. It doesn't mean they stopped wanting to go to Mars. It just means that they're going to build a city on the moon first as a step to get to Mars. Why? Well, there's a number of reasons to do this. The first one is the moon's a lot closer than Mars. That's step number one. And the moon orbits Earth, so we can send things to the moon every day if we wanted to. Like, it's not that far of a trip. In order to go to Mars, we can only do that every 18 months or so, because sometimes the orbit of Mars, sometimes Mars is on the other side of the sun than we are. Like, we're not there, we're both orbiting the sun, so they have to plan the missions at the time when Earth and Mars are closer together, or on the same side as the sun, or in relative closeness. And that only happens, like every 2 years or so, even more, like 2.5 years. So they can't just go to Mars. It's a lot farther away. So why start building a moon base? Well, the reason for a moon base, the objective of that, why you want to build a moon base, is, like I said, number one, you can send things to the moon, you can send supplies to the moon, you can send robots to the moon, you can send all these things to the moon almost daily, right? You could send off these rockets all the time if you want to. They're not going to send daily rockets, but they can get the materials there very easily. Secondly, when you want to then go to Mars and you want to launch, like, most of the fuel, I was reading about rockets, and it was something like 90%, somewhere in that range, of the rocket fuel that's in that, like, when you see like a space shuttle or something take off, that 90% of that fuel that's in those big tanks is burned within like the first mile of getting off the Earth, because you have to expend a lot of energy to reach escape velocity because of Earth's gravity. So the purpose of going to the moon and building a base there is the moon is like a quarter of the Earth, so it doesn't have as much gravity. So therefore, you don't need to put as much fuel if you launch the rocket from the moon. And if you have a base on the moon, then you'll be able to do that. So the objective is to do that, because again, now the less fuel they have to pack, because you can't just fuel up on the way to Mars. The less fuel that they have to pack, that they have to put in there, gives them more space to put in more equipment and more supplies and more stuff to then make the base on Mars. That's the whole point. Now, again, if you haven't sat and listened to it, you're just like, oh, Elon Musk again, he said we're going to Mars, now he's focused on the moon. It's like, well, yeah, because you don't understand how this works, and you just want to be a negative Nancy and then move on to go to work the next day. So that's the other reason why they're doing that. Now, the cool thing that so that's all that. Let me get to the point of my topic here, which is a type 2 civilization. So let me pull that up really quickly. So being a type 2 civilization, let me just read exactly what that means. So there's something called the I think I say it wrong every time, but it's the Kardashev. I want to say Kardashev scale. Oh, we got a message. Oh, I forgot I even had this on. All right, it's stereo. Oh, I got people here in stereo. Thank you. We got a message here.
What would you say would have to be the national neighboring sentiment for this I guess you could say the global span of humanity to be able to tap into the full potential of the sun's energy?
Yeah.
Right? We couldn't have these international conflicts that we had if we were to achieve a type 2 civilization, or even type 3. Like, it would have to be, would you say it would have to be more along the Star Trek side of the game, where you have the Intergalactic Federation, you know what I'm saying, and all the nations of Earth come together under, I guess, a one unified global order? Can that be a positive thing for us?
Yes, and so great. So thank you for that comment. But so already understands what the type 1. I'm going to answer that question. But just for the people who don't know what this Kardashev, someone correct my pronunciation, but I want to say Kardashev, Kardashev, the Kardashev scale. So what this does is this talks about the different types of civilization levels. So 0 is we're at level 0 right now. 0 is a civilization that can use some of the energy of its planet, which is where we are. I think we're efficient. I've seen a couple things. If someone say we're at 0.7, 0.8, point something. Now, a type 1 civilization is a planetary civilization. It's able to access all the energy available to the planet and store it for consumption. So all is different than some. We don't use nearly. I don't. That's why I say I don't know how we're a 0.7, a 0.8. I feel like we're like a 0.2, because all of it would be all tidal energy, all the plate tectonics, the magma, the wind, the solar energy, and I don't think people really understand how much energy is on planet Earth that hits planet Earth. I mean, there's enough energy is put on planet Earth in 1 hour from the sun that could power all of humanity for the entire year. We just need to collect it and store it. So I really want to answer your questions. Let me finish this. So that's a type 1. So if you could access all the energy of your planet, then that would be a type 1. A type 2, which is what we're talking about here, is a stellar civilization that can directly consume a star's energy, most likely through something called Dyson sphere. So you would be able to. Now, it doesn't say all the energy, and there's different interpretations of these things. Some people will say you have to do all the energy of the star is type 2. This just says harnessing directly from the star, which doesn't say all of it, but then we're already doing some of it. So then we could be a type 2 already. So let's say for our discussion, let's say like 80% of the star's energy, which we don't even get a small minimal millionth of it, because right now I just told you a fact about the sun hitting the Earth, and that all the sun's rays that are hitting Earth could power humanity for a year in 1 hour, but we're just a small little section of the sun's energy. Like the sun, that's just the small little part of the sun that actually hits Earth. You know, the sun also goes in 360. It's round. Like I think even the flat earthers will agree the sun is round, right? So that's going in 363 degrees. 360 degrees in a three-dimensional. So the little tiny speck of energy that we pick up is a lot of energy. So now getting to a type 2 and harnessing even 80%, even 50%, even 1% of the sun's total energy is huge. And then a type 3 civilization is a galactic civilization, and that's a civilization that's able to capture all the energy emitted from all the stars, everything in a galaxy, the stars, the black holes, the everything that's there, which is crazy. So to answer the question here, what would it take? So I'm in economics. I graduated school with an economics major, and economics is the study of the distribution of scarce resources, right? And economics isn't necessary if resources aren't scarce, right? There's no economics of air, right? Because there's so much air that we don't care. Now, if we got to a point where, air was scarce, then we'd have to find a way to distribute air. So how do we get to a type 2 and get around all the countries and all this stuff? We would have to become a planetary type of species. We would have to think about humanity as opposed to, Americans versus Canada versus Iran versus everything. We would have to have humans. We'd have to go towards more of a human, be human. I always say if we wanted to stop, everyone's like, oh, how can we create world peace? I always say the way to create world peace is to have some aliens attack us, because then we would stop being we'd stop being anti everybody and just be like, oh, you're human. We're all team human now. Team human would be a lot better. Sorry, my voice is going. I'm drinking some tea. Now, can I make the aliens attack us? No. But if we create, and Elon has definitely thought about this. He's definitely taken a bunch of time to think about this. He's like, well, if we can create, and Tesla's new, their old mission statement used to be to enhance or accelerate the world's transition to renewable energy. It's since changed, and it's changed to bring sustainable abundance to humanity. All right. And what I think the way we start moving towards a global type of system is sustainable abundance. Because if everybody has access to food, everyone has access to, let's say the basics: shelter, food, water, little love, all that kind of stuff. And that's what the robots are doing. That's what the AI and the robots, it gets to the point where they can make so much stuff that our monetary system goes away. All right. And there's no need for poverty because the robots can just grow whatever we can grow. And as I know, this all sounds very utopian, and that's fine, but we're just talking about how it can happen, not necessarily if it can happen. And the objective of what they're doing, or what Elon's goal is to get us there, is to go there. And it's huge, and it's massive, and everything seems like it's impossible today. But again, if you went 1,000, and he doesn't think he's going to do it in the next, probably even in his lifetime. He's trying to. He's pushing everyone to try to get as far as possible in his lifetime. But even if it takes 100 years, 200 years, 500 years, who cares? Like, you got to start moving in that direction. And that's really, what these companies are doing. That's what he's laying the groundwork for. And if you went 100 years in the past and told them about how we live today, and if we went to, what is it? It's at 100, the 1920s, and you said everyone's going to have cell phones and microphones and even electricity and hot water and showers in our houses, and like all the things that we just take for granted now, would seem like magic, would seem like La La Land back in 1926. And if that's not far enough, go 200 years, 1826. So the objective is not to say that sounds crazy, because of course it sounds crazy, because you're looking at the way it is today and saying, and trying to perceive how it gets, but it's going to take time. No one's saying it's going to get there in the next year, but this is how we do it. And so again, if you have robots who can work 24/7, get powered by the sun or recharged and built in. People say, like, I've already done this whole thing about robots. And people are like, who's going to fix the robots? The robots can fix the robots. Well, will the robots kill us? So we'll worry about that later. We're just talking about if we make benevolent robots and they don't kill us. But to answer my answer to the question is, we make sustainable abundance for everyone, and we get away from the idea of, I need to own things. That's my car, that's my house, this is my whatever. And I know people start yelling socialism, but the point being is, no one says that's my air molecules. Those, you are breathing too much air, because we don't care, right? No one, you're drinking too much water. Now, in other parts of the world, water is an important thing, but again, once it's a scarce thing. But if we could make wells, I watched that thing, Mr. Beast making 100 wells in Africa. Well, guess what? The robots can dig wells, right? So now you give everyone water, and once something becomes abundant, people stop fighting over it, right? And so the ideas of countries, and what is a country? A country is just a group of people, a tribe of people who are within a made up, territory that are supposed to be on the same team. Now, in America, we don't seem to understand that we're on the same team, but most other countries get it. But you would have to then, you wouldn't have the need for the tribalism in the countries if there was sustainable abundance, right? Now, again, you don't have to believe that this can happen. I'm just saying how it could happen, or how we would get to where we need to get to. And so anyway, all right, I see a bunch of messages are coming through, so I wanted to get that thought out, and then I'll play the messages. All right, let's go messages.
I don't know what kind of propaganda you're spreading here, but type 2 diabetes is not a joke. Not become a type 2 civilization.
Well, first of all, I have type 2 diabetes, and it definitely is not a joke at all. Which is why I'm drinking this tea and water and stay away from the sugar. Don't eat sugar. I did something that said, there's those things in social media that say, if you had to give yourself advice, your younger self advice, in 3 words, I wrote, don't eat sugar, or eat less sugar, I think it should be. So yeah, but thanks, Worm. Thanks for joining us today. This is gonna be a short one today. I just wanted to get this out. I'm going to get this idea about what's going on with actual XAI, but as usual, I've strayed on several tangents on the way to my main message, and hopefully we'll get there today. All right, Mr. Rogish Neighborhood.
You are actually correct. I believe that the state of human civilization would have to be within a utopia in order to, progress to type 2. But once you get to type 3 and type 4, then they're talking about, being able to contain and utilize all of the energy of like a solar system. And it's like, okay, does humanity need that once they're able to acquire the average basic state of utopia, right? I think the Kardashev scale was created with the subconscious intention of with capitalism, profit. We can say energy, but do humans have a necessity to consume that amount of energy?
Yeah, so I think the purpose of the energy is not necessarily about the consumption for people. I think we could be a type 1 civilization. We don't need to get to type 2 to obtain sustainable abundance for everyone. Like we just don't. That enough energy isn't necessary. We just need the robots. we need. I was watching a skit by Louis C.K. and it's called Of Course But Maybe. And he talks about slavery in there, and he's like, of course slavery is horrible and it should never happen at any time, but maybe, if we want to create something, the only way to do it is, is to not care about people. Like, how did we get the Transcontinental Railroad? We just threw a bunch of Asian people in a mine, and we didn't care if they blew up. And how did we build the pyramids? We just did this suffering of thousands of people. How did America become so rich and prosperous? Well, we just don't care about the suffering of the people that we're using. So not saying that the robots, by the way, if you're listening, the AI and robots, just so you know, I love you. And I'm going to be a willing and peaceful pet. But the robots would work even better than slaves, because slaves do get tired. Like you don't want them to, when they do die, and they're not as efficient when they're tired and they're hungry and they're not, and they die. A robot doesn't, that's not a problem. They don't need to take off. They don't need breaks. They don't get tired. And you could even program the robots to enjoy the work. Like they could enjoy what they're doing, building whatever, So, Lamborghinis don't become, the reason why a Lamborghini is such an expensive thing is because it takes so many hours and so much time to make one. But if the robots can make them all the time, then no one would anyone ever sat in a Lamborghini? I have. It's awful. It's not comfortable at all, right? But it's the idea of how hard it is to make that makes it so expensive, right? I think it costs like $15,000 just to do an oil change on like one of the Lamborghini types. I'm not a big car guy, so but just because of where everything is now, you have to take everything apart and blah blah blah. So when you have infinite labor, right? When you have, and again, the robots, the first thing the robots are going to make are more robots. Like you just make more robots. You can have, like Elon's been talking about, having 2 robots for every human on planet Earth. So you don't need to be a type 2 or 3 civilization for that to happen. Like that energy we can do as a type 1 civilization. But to answer your question there, why do you need to harness all the energy of the sun or of an entire galaxy, if you want to be a type 3? And I think this is why type 2 is what they're talking about. And the reason I brought this up, I got to start writing things down so I don't. The reason I brought up the type 2 part is, and I talked about this in our last show, is SpaceX filed with the FCC. I'll read it right quickly. It says, in a filing with the FCC in late January or January 30th, SpaceX proposed an orbital data center constellation of up to 1 million satellites in low Earth orbit. The satellites would operate at altitudes between 500 and 2,000 kilometers at a 30-degree blah, 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 to maximize time and sunlight for solar power generation. By directly harnessing near constant solar power, with all operating and maintenance costs, these satellites would achieve transformative cost and energy efficiency while significantly reducing the environmental impact associated with terrestrial data centers. All right. Launching a constellation of 1 million satellites that operate as orbital data centers is a first step towards becoming a Kardashev type 2 civilization. This is why I brought this up. It's the whole purpose of me talking about this, is because this is probably the first time ever the Kardashev type 2 civilization has been put into an actual filing with the FCC, right? So that was the whole purpose of talking about type 2. And all right, we got a lot of messages. Let me play those. I'll answer, and we'll move on. Oop.
Yeah, I like this community spirit. Okay, in the future we won't have OPP. We'll only have all people's pussy. It'll belong to all of us.
APP. Yeah, well, if you think, and I know Warb's just being funny, so I appreciate the comedic relief. But if you think about, this is what, what's his name? This is what Andrew Yang was talking about when he was talking about, when he was running for president. He was talking about, universal UBI, universal basic income, is you eliminate, when you eliminate money, the scarcity, when you start eliminating scarcity, then it eliminates a whole lot of problems, right? It's like most crime would go away. Now, there would still be crimes, as Worm just mentioned, crimes of passion maybe, but theft, robbery, rescission, most 90% of crime would go away if you could have, if people weren't loaded into these socioeconomical horrible situations in their life, right? So you eliminate all that, and now you can be a little bit more benevolent. You don't have to worry about people stealing your things, because why would I steal your things if I can have everything you have easily, right? The only things that wouldn't be, is like maybe if you lived in a certain part of the country or house or whatever, but there are certain things that can't be mass produced. But if 90% of stuff can be mass produced, it eliminates a lot of the jealousy and need of tribalism, need of I need to be there. And even then people, it disrupts the way the caste system and the way we currently look at things, as far as things that we need, right? The consumption, like in America, we wrap our identity is wrapped up in, what we do for work, as opposed to, and that was one of the things I liked about Andrew Yang, was he said, we need to find different values for people as opposed to economic values. He's like, economic value is one thing, but you can be valuable as a human being and not have to be economically valuable. You can bring value through music. You can bring value through raising your children, and just imagine how much better our children would be raised if we didn't have both parents now having to go to work for 40 hours, a week to just maintain, and the stress of bills and the stress of all these things. So what kind of better family relationships can we have? What kind of better mental states can people be in, and mental health, and that we can get, and being able to travel the world and be able to create more things, right? So anyway, I'm on a soapbox. So I want to get through these messages, because I want to hear what you guys have to say. Oh, we couldn't hear you. Well, apparently they thought I was crazy, but we couldn't hear you on that message.
You think you're uncomfortable in the Lamborghini. How do you think the Lamborghini feels about you being inside it?
Well, I'm like 300 pounds, so probably doesn't like it at all.
So with your level of understanding with economics, you also understand prior to something being described as value, right? The immaterial aspect of applying value to something. So let me ask you something. Do you see, or do you think money is a social condition? Or is it really just a tool, underutilized or ill-utilized?
Yeah, money is a tool. Money isn't a thing. It's a unit of measurement. It's a unit of measurement of value. The value, the thing of real value, this is why quote unquote rich people, or the wealthy, will gladly trade you money for your time, right? Because time is something that's valuable. Your effort and work is valuable. Your intelligence and your creativity is valuable, and resources are valuable. This is why even you don't even have to be rich. I'll gladly give you money for food, but the food is the real value. I remember Alan Watts it really opened my eyes to something when he said once, he's like, we had in America, we had a Great Depression, and people were literally living on the streets, losing their homes, couldn't, dying from, because they didn't have heat, because they didn't have food. But there was no less materials. There was no less food. There was no less wood, no less iron. All the stuff that we needed was here. The only problem was there was no money. The economic system, the measurements, the tools we used to measure the system was messed up. But the real stuff was still around. But because the economic system was messed up, because the measurement system that we created was messed up, we had people dying literally with the real wealth, right there, right? And so, yeah, money is just it's like going to a construction site and them saying, we have no work for you today because we're out of inches. Like, we don't have any inches. It's like, what do you mean? Like, we don't have inches? Yeah, no inches. We have wood, we have nails, we have hammers. We got all that stuff. We just don't have any. We don't have any inches. So maybe we'll work tomorrow when we get some inches back. We fix the inches. Like, that's what money is, as far as I'm concerned. All right. Hopefully I answered that question.
I don't know how we're gonna afford this Dyson Sphere. I can't even afford one of their vacuums. This is crazy.
The Dyson vacuums are pretty expensive, but one more.
If it is achieved, how much loss of agency must humanity suffer?
I don't know. We couldn't really hear you on that one, but when you're talking about loss of age, again, it's not the loss of agency. The objective is it's a complete shift. What we're talking about with sustainable abundance is completely different than anything that humanity has ever experienced before, because our entire existence has been fight or flight, has been tribalism. Like, the reason humans exist is because we bond together. Like, we don't have claws, we don't have the ability to run faster than most animals. We can't do most of these things. The reason we're able to exist is because we were able to form communities and form trusts, and so and work together and grow food, have the hunters, people were hunting, some people would take care of this, some people were protectors. We were able to form social groups. This is why our brains have developed that we need love, we need social, we need interaction with other people. This is why, like, in jail, one of the worst things you can do is put people in solitary confinement for too long. People go crazy, right? Just being by themselves. So this is a human condition. I have a pet. I take her out every once in a while, but she's quite happy. My chinchilla is quite happy to just be by herself for days, right? Sometimes she doesn't even want to talk to me when I come. I let her out of the cage. She won't even come out. So, but for humans, that would be intolerable, right? Because that's how we survive. That's how our brains and our psychology has come about. So we need each other. But as far as the concept of when you need each other, but then you have scarce resources, now you have to fight. We have to combat. We have to, you're part of my tribe, so I trust you, and we're going to work together versus that tribe because we're going to we're not going to have enough, food. We got to survive. But so we've never been in a scenario where everything you want existed, right? Everything could be made without conquering, without fighting, without, the lack of resources. Like, so we don't know what this society is like, but it definitely has to be run differently. The government would have to be, lots of things would have to change. So, but I only have a couple more minutes, and I want to get to my main point here. So to get to when I said this to Soup, he was like, super high man, by the way. He's like, I don't think, level 2 civilization is ridiculous. Like, that's not even, why do we, excuse me, let me finish up with Mr. Rogish, because I wanted to finish that idea. So the idea of getting to a level 2 society or civilization is not needed for sustainable abundance. It's actually the other way around. Like, we need to be sustainably abundant to then get to a type 2 civilization. That would have to be a prerequisite, in my opinion. But the reason for it is not to get there. The reason to get to a type 2 civilization, because we need that kind of energy to be able to make things like a warp drive, right? They actually just, I should have pulled that up, but they literally just, the scientists found a way to get like a particle to literally go faster than the speed of light. But it didn't really go faster than the speed of light. It went through a mini wormhole that they created. But it took a lot of energy. It was only for like a split second. And that's what we're talking about. So the energy that's needed, because I sit around and I think about the universe, a lot. And I think about I was just talking to my nephews yesterday, and I'm like, I've done this on this show many times, but I was showing them, I was like, the speed of light, a light year is something like 400 trillion miles that light travels in a year. It's close to 5 trillion, right? It's like 4 point something. I forget. And the closest star to us is 4 light years away. So that means that the closest star is about 20 trillion miles away. And that's just one stinking star that happens to be the closest to our star. No, I know the sun is our closest star, but I'm talking about closest to the sun. So you think about the other 2 trillion stars that are out there and how far away these freaking things are. Like, there's got to be a way to get from one to the other. And it's going to take a lot of energy. It's going to take, good, this will help me round up my talk here today. It's going to take a lot of energy. It's going to take probably a lot more ingenuity and thought process than we have currently today. And so here's my point. The point of SpaceX now is to get us to, well, their goal again is to get us to a type 2 civilization. Their overall goal is to make us interstellar, right? Now, SpaceX originally was just to get us to Mars. And I think what has happened is Elon has figured out that rockets are not going to be the way. Like, there's no way we're not going to be able to make rockets to get us out of the solar system, right? It's just not going to happen. That burning fuel to get somewhere. So here's what I want you to do. Go and look at the symbol for Grok, right? So if you look at Grok is the AI for X, right? And then there's a little symbol. So I should give everyone homework. And look at that symbol and tell me what that symbol is. Actually, I'm not going to give you homework. I'll just tell you. Right? The symbol is a symbol of a black hole, right? So what does a black hole have to do with Grok, a AI system built, large language model built for X, right? Which was for Twitter, right? So it's just a rival of Gemini and, these other AIs, ChatGPT. Why is ChatGPT called ChatGPT, and why is Grok Grok? And why is Grok symbol a black hole? Well, let's look. XAI was merged with X, right? Which XAI built Grok, but it was trained on X, right? Because it was just a language thing, and X had all of that data, right? In order to train an AI, you need data. So X had all the data from all the users and everyone tweeting and Xing or whatever the hell it's called now, right? So Grok was in there. XAI made it. They merged those two together. Now SpaceX decides he has SpaceX buy XAI and X and Grok, the thing with the black hole, right? And what is that they're training to do? They have all this data and information about space and travel and all this stuff. What I think Elon feels is that we're not going to be smart enough to figure out how to get warp drives, how to get. So Elon kind of believes, he's actually said this recently, he doesn't really believe in scientists, he believes in engineers. Engineers is what he's looking at. And what I think he thinks is that Grok is going to be needed. We're going to need because if you look up the mission, what was the mission statement for Grok? I remember I looked it up and I was like, oh yeah, it's all about interplanetary answers and questions and stuff. Hold on. What is the mission of Grok? The core mission of Grok, as defined by Elon Musk and his AI company XAI, is to understand the true nature of the universe. Right? This mission drives the development of Grok AI. Blah blah blah. Key aspects of Grok's mission and purpose: understand the universe. The overarching goal of XAI and Grok is to advance humanity and humanity's understanding of the cosmos, including answering profound questions about the universe. It's a lot of universe stuff. This is not like if you look up what GPT or Gemini's thing, it's not a bunch of stuff about the cosmos and the universe, right? It doesn't have a black hole as its icon, right? Maximize truth seeking, blah blah blah. We'll worry about all the rest of the stuff. We're not talking about the rest of the stuff. But that's the objective of Grok. So what I think is going on is that SpaceX is not going to be the space company, Elon's space company. XAI is going to be the space company. I think what the objective is to put enough information, make Grok an AGI, and which is basically a self-generating, a general intelligent AI, and get it to the point where it can start figuring out how to get us to other parts of the universe. I think that's his objective. And in order to get there, you need a ton of energy. So I guess I'll wrap up with this, right? So what's happening is they get the million satellites. Now what they're trying to do is put the AI satellites, and this is again why he merged all these companies together, because they need data centers. But to make a data center on Earth, it costs a lot of money. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of power. It's all electricity. So what did we just read as far as why they wanted to put the data center in space? Because now in space, they're harnessing the energy from the sun. It never gets dark, right? That's why you're in orbit. The only reason it gets nighttime on Earth is because the Earth is spinning. Flat earthers, right? So but if you have satellites that can face the sun all the time, they're out in space. They're always facing the sun, right? Whether the Earth is spinning at night, daytime and nighttime. So they can generate the energy, they can diffuse the energy and diffuse the heat, because that's what a lot of data centers, the problem is heat. And then they take that information and send it around to Earth. Right now, there's only about 15,000 satellites circling the Earth. You're talking about 2 orders of magnitude. We're going to 1 million satellites, and SpaceX can send up rockets, can make these satellites, send them up there, get them all done. So if you have 1 million data centers with getting energy from the sun all the time, 24/7, 365 days a year, with all that energy and all that compute, what could the Grok AI figure out? What kind of things could AI be bringing to us? And so I think that is the real space company. I think SpaceX is just one of the missions, one of the steps in the path. I think that's going to get us to Mars, but I think the objective of Grok and XAI is to get us to a Type 2 civilization. So that's my theory. My hypothesis. All right, we had some messages.
Oh, you also understand that information is sustenance on the digital realm. Yeah, and so they can't avoid AGI or ASI. It's inevitable because that's the properties of intelligence, not just digital state, but intelligence itself. But that makes sense. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I like when people tell me what I say makes sense. Sometimes it takes me a little time to formulate the idea and get my mouth to make the words that are in my head, but occasionally I am successful. All right, Worm, you got the last word.
It's just like when the Nazis went down to Antarctica, okay? Not everybody's got a place on the boat, okay? These motherfucking Nazis are only taking other motherfucking Nazis. So, and Katy Perry can also go.
I have no clue. I'm not going to end my show on that, but thanks. So the idea is, in order for us to get to a Type 2 civilization, and by the way, I said this to Soup, and he's like, Soup is not an Elon Musk fan. A lot of people aren't. That's fine. But we're not even a portion of the way there. I said, well, of course we're not a portion of the way there, but I'm telling you what he's working on. I'm telling you what the goal is. I'm telling you, I don't even have to tell you. They literally put it into their missions, into the filing to the FCC. So this is what they're doing. And this is how it's all coming together. by the way, Tesla is going to be making the because all these satellites are going to need solar panels. So guess what? Tesla just ramped up a bunch of their solar panel business. They have a big factory up in Buffalo, and Solar City's gone away. Their terrestrial solar business is really falling off the cliff. So why all of a sudden are they now ramping up again in Buffalo? And it's to make the solar panels for the satellites. Also, Tesla is making chips. They're ramping up their production of AI chips because every single one of these satellites needs chips. And instead of buying them all from NVIDIA, Tesla's going to be making their own chips. And it's one of the reasons why I invest every dollar that I invest into. Well, 99% of the dollars I invest goes into Tesla, basically. So all these things, all these convergences are happening, and I just wanted to point them out. There's not really anything to debate or argue about. I'm just putting out my hypothesis and just looking at the breadcrumbs of what Elon Musk is doing, what his focus and goal is. So anyway, it's 11:06. I said I was going to do an hour, so my family is here visiting, so I got to get going. I will address this again in a future podcast, and we'll talk about it in more detail. But yeah, that's our path to a Type 2 civilization is. Well, will Elon and Tesla and SpaceX and XAI and X, will it come to fruition? Who knows? We'll see. At least we get to watch. But I definitely think this is the path that they are on. It's nice to. I don't see anybody else even actually attempting this, attempting these types of things, even thinking about these types of things. I bet you if you ask most CEOs what the Kardashev scale is, they wouldn't even know. So it's nice to that they're at least. I won't even say Elon. I'll just say there's some companies out there that are working towards these types of goals, because I think it would be awesome. Anyway, all right, guys. Thank you again for another Cosmic Matters. I'll be back here again 10 o'clock next week, every Sunday. I jump on here and I chit chat about space and philosophy. So appreciate your comments. And if you want to check us out, we're also on YouTube. If you want to see, I post a lot of these things up on YouTube under Philosophy Man 76. And you can check us out also on TikTok. We're there live as well, Philosophy Man 76. All right. I will see you all next week, and hope you have a great week. Time to go. Need a better sign off.